Hi, welcome to Lost in Thought. My name is Jen and today I would like to talk about drinking water in the Middle Ages or the medieval period. Now this is one of those facts that I'm sure we've all learnt at school, and in school we were all taught, or at least I was taught, and I'm sure a lot of you were as well, that medieval people did not drink water, that everybody, men, women and even the smallest of children would just drink beer, because water was filthy, it was far too dirty to drink, and beer was far cleaner. But is this true? Well, no, not really, not at all, in fact. We've actually got plenty of sources to prove that medieval people did drink water, and today I want to go through some of them with you to prove that they did drink water. And if anyone did say to you that medieval people never drank water, then you could easily point them out to this video and hopefully change their mind. So if we start with the Anglo-Saxon period, which in England is the start of our medieval period. I know for some other parts of Europe the 5th century is still the Iron Age, but for us this starts our medieval period. Then there is archaeological evidence of wells being built, and these wells are lined with wood, and similar can be seen on the continent as well. And towns that were being built were also centred around streams and rivers, so places where there was easy access to water. King Alfred, he wrote that the words that he wrote were, "They drank the water of the clear springs." So a spring is where water, it naturally comes up out of the ground, so it's filtered, it's perfectly fine to drink because it's filtered throughout the rock. And even today, if you've ever heard of a place called Buxton, they produce Buxton mineral water and it's sold all over the UK. You can still go to Buxton. In fact, there's a tap in the middle of Buxton. You can get Buxton water for free there. It's perfectly safe to drink, and these springs were well known to the Anglo-Saxons and other people that water was absolutely fine to drink. It's perfectly safe. Spring water is also mentioned in leech books, so the medical books of the time. And St. Cuthbert, one of his miracles was to create a spring where there wasn't one before. Obviously take that with a pinch of salt. But yet again, spring water, it was known, and it was known for being safe to drink. Perhaps my absolute favourite piece of evidence for water being drank in this period, and I love this, it's brilliant, it's from a monk called Bede, and he was Northumbrian. He's writing again about a Northumbrian king, King Edwin, and he writes, "The king established a benefit for his people in many places where clear springs or streams ran by well-used roads. Where they were most frequented, he ordered posts with bronze cups hung on them to be set up for the refreshment of travellers, and yet nobody, out of awe and love for him, dared to touch them except for his necessary use." I think it's absolutely fabulous. So, and similar laws were also in effect in the 9th or 10th century Ireland as well, but instead of those bronze cups there was wooden lathe turned cups. So both laws, they existed in Northumbria and they existed in Ireland at the same time. So yet again, another really good evidence for drinking of water. However, having only water to drink and nothing else was seen as deprivation. So there was a lot of monasteries and they had lots of rules, and quite a common punishment, especially for things like talking during a church service, was for the offender to only be allowed to eat and drink bread and water. So that would be for either the rest of the day, or for 3 days, or for the entirety of a week. It really depended on how persistent that offender was on having a chat during the church service. But obviously if the water was to kill somebody, then that would be a bit extreme. Different monasteries, different orders had various rules, but that you find those in various monasteries throughout the entirety of the Middle Ages. Later on in the 13th century, the Council of London, they built a series of pipes. They were made from lead and from wood, and they filled a cistern in Cheapside, so a big tank, and these pipes brought water direct from springs in Tyburn, so the Tyburn River, and it was called the Great Conduit, and any citizen was allowed to go and get small amounts of water for their personal use from there. And there was wardens there as well to make sure people weren't taking too much water, and the wardens would also repair the conduit if it was needed to be repaired. This was used throughout the entirety of, well, from the 13th century onwards, all the way through the late Middle Ages, all the way right through the Tudor period, and it was stopped being used in 1666 when the Great Fire of London actually destroyed it. So yet again, water being drank all the way in London, all the way throughout the Tudor period as well as the Middle Ages. So brilliant. I could go on, as there's still plenty of sources, plenty of evidence to say that medieval people did drink water perfectly safely and were absolutely fine from it. So why do we have this misconception? Why do a lot of modern people think that medieval people never drank water or would only drink beer? Well, I do have a theory, but this is my theory and I'm not entirely sure whether it's completely true. And I think people nowadays are getting really mixed up with much later Victorian pandemics of things like cholera. But the first recorded instance of cholera in England wasn't until 1831. So there was no records of diseases like cholera in medieval England. Yes, they had their own illnesses and diseases to contend with, but something like cholera wasn't a problem for them at all. So, and that is a waterborne disease. So there we have it, medieval people, they did drink water. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please leave a like, a comment. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing. Thank you ever so much for joining me today, and hope to see you soon. Goodbye.